Right, Ali, thanks for joining Ratasat here today in Camden.
You are very welcome. Nice to be here.
We're going to get straight into it. How did you get into artist management?
Well, I got into artist management, as I think most managers do, completely unintentionally and with no desire to do it at all. I started off as a radio presenter for the last 3 years. That's what I've done, and that gave me a kind of unique insight, I guess, into how the music industry works in the UK, especially at an emerging band level. You know, when acts are really doing the hardest work to build a fan base, get crowds down to their shows, get music released.
Brilliant, brilliant. So what are the main responsibilities of being an artist manager then?
Right, so this is one of the hardest questions to answer, because sometimes it looks like you're just swanning about and not really doing anything. A lot of answering emails. To put it in perspective, there's about 20 people or so work on the band in the UK and the US at the moment. That's agents, regional press people, national press people, there's digital PRs, there are people who look after student radio and the connections there, there's people within the label who look after the music, there's people who look after the strategy, and there's an accountant, there's a lawyer, there's insurance brokers, there's a tour manager, there's a front house engineer, and there has to be someone at the centre of that.
Brilliant. So what's your relationship with the artists you manage then?
Well, the artists I manage, I've known them personally for quite a while, which probably the best part of a decade. I've known them as friends, and you know, one of their better halves, their girlfriend, is one of my really good friends, and I've been a fan of the music they've made. That's how I first got to know them, because they were all in different bands, and I supported them and loved them, went to the shows. So I've known them personally for a long time, but there has to be quite a distinction when we're talking business, that they know I will be incredibly blunt with them.
What's your criteria for taking on an artist? What makes you want to manage a band or a performer?
It will sound like I'm just saying this, but it has to be the music. The amount of conversations you have to have, and I mean, the kind of typical working day is, there isn't one really. I could go from 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, just thinking of things that the band could do, approaching people, pitching the band to people, speaking to someone who maybe is a sync supervisor for a TV show and saying, you need this band. I know there are thousands of other bands who want it, but you need this band. So I don't know how someone could possibly do that if they didn't like the music. I mean, there have been quite a few acts who've approached me since Pride started doing well, maybe bands that I've even played on Radio 1, and I think they're great, and I think their music's great, but I've asked to hear more music, and I've not been able to believe in the whole thing, because it's maybe one or two good songs and the rest are a bit, and I couldn't pitch. I couldn't, even if I potentially saw a big deal in it, or lots of money in it, I couldn't do it.
Okay. Tell us about Prides.
Right, so they are, if you've not come across them before, they're a three-piece from Glasgow. The lead singer always starts every show by, "Hey, we're Prides from Glasgow," in an English accent, because he's from Stoke originally, but he's lived in Glasgow for like 12 years. They met in Glasgow, they've all been in different bands and shared friendship groups and been to gigs together, and they're a band who, at first, when people hear them, it's big pop music, and it's unashamed pop music. It's very in your face, it's very anthemic, and that can be a hard sell at the start, because lots of people, especially people who are maybe making a blog, or people who are doing sort of late night radio shows like I was, you're looking for the kind of cool hipster stuff that's like the newest sound. But these boys wear their influences on their sleeve. They've been compared to Deacon Blue, and they're proud of that, they're happy of that. They unashamedly love covering the likes of Katy Perry, or going to see Ariana Grande live. They love pop music, and to break that is a hard thing, but to be proud of that is probably the first thing that happens with them.
You've been a presenter on Radio 1.
Yes, indeed.
Right?
That was a bit bonkers. I'd never really set out to be a radio presenter in the slightest. I had no illusions of being the next Scott Mills or being the next Greg James or whatever, because from my teenage years upwards, I've always wanted to work in music. So the way I see Radio 1 was the first job I got in music. So if that's your first job in music, that's an incredible thing to have. And when I first got the job, I was running a blog in Scotland called Detour Scotland, which was all about, it was kind of a blog, kind of a live night. We were putting on young bands, we were putting them in tiny, tiny bars, we were putting them, making them play on the Scottish-English border in the snow, putting them up hills, and doing gigs down alleyways and in parks, and filming it all as to promote the gigs, but then the videos became more popular than the gigs. And you know, I'm not going to say it was the best business strategy, but it caused a lot of interest, and a lot of bands wanted to play it. And then there was bands from down south wanting to come up because they saw this audience in Glasgow, and they're like, oh, let's get involved with this. And really, I was working full time in a restaurant and doing that, and then Radio 1 came to me and said, would you like to cover for one of our presenters when he's on holiday? We think you're great. And I'd only been presenting this kind of YouTube channel because nobody else would do it. I was quite happy to be in the background, and then they offered me about 2 weeks later, after I'd done one sort of holiday cover, they said, look, we'd love you to be a presenter. Ended up being a Radio 1 presenter for 3 years, which was pretty bizarre and unexpected. And then that led into the music management, and maybe 2 or 3 years later I could be working somewhere else in music.